we survived session 1. Welcome back to session 2 of Be Anxious for Nothing. You know, when I think about the possibility of being anxious for nothing, that concept is almost, it almost seems unreal.
It really does.
It almost seems impossible, but we know that it has to be possible, right? Because it's right here in God's Word.
Yeah.
So when we talk about that possibility, how amazing is it to you that Paul never complains one time in the book of Philippians?
I wish I had that gift.
Yeah, it seems like a gift, right?
Yes.
But at the same time, we know that he's making a choice that when life seems out of control, he's just going to do what he can to say, look, I'm going to be anxious for nothing and trust God with the control parts. And in fact, there's some specific things in this session that we want to point out. And Dave, if you just go ahead and point out a couple of those.
Yeah, you'll find on page 24, Max Lucado says the people with anxiety, it says the more they try to control the world, the more they realize they cannot. We cannot take control because control is not ours to take. That's a hard lesson to learn, but it's one that we need to learn as early as we can in life.
Oh, absolutely. I think if we look at it, there's been times where we've all tried to control an outcome. We've all tried to control a circumstance. And it becomes more frustrating because it's not turning out like we wanted. The expectation is different, and life just begins to spin out of control. There's one last point, and it's the very last one that's mentioned on our list. Why don't you read that?
The book says, your Father has never dropped anyone. He will not drop you.
Let's talk about that for just a minute.
Well, the old saying is, were you dropped on your head as a baby? You know, I know some people like that. But the whole truth of this matter is, and what we talked about in the first session, is we're not in control, and we can't be in control. God is. We don't see the big picture, and we need to step back and understand that all things do work together for good to them that love God. So when it says your Father has never dropped anyone, he will not drop you. And that starts from before you're conceived in the womb, all the way up to the last promise, the last earthly promise in the Bible in John 14. We're welcomed into the Father's house. So his love, his concern, his care is there from early to death. And if we learn to actually get a hold of that truth and let his love live in us, then that anxiety does and can drop off.
You know, I think that last thought, our Father has never dropped anyone, and he's not going to drop you. I think we're always afraid that maybe God's not going to take as good a care of us as we would like him to. And the bottom line is he's got a greater plan, he's got a greater purpose, and he's far better for us than we could ever be for ourselves. So we want you to hang on to these truths. Trade in that anxiety for the choice to be anxious for nothing and trust God. I hope that you'll enjoy this time of discussion.